Sign the house over to me, Dad, or I'll have you declared mentally unfit. My son Brandon stood in my kitchen, legal papers spread across the oak table where I'd fed him breakfast for 18 years. This cardiovascular surgeon, who'd been too busy to visit his dying mother, even once during her 8-year battle with Alzheimer's, was demanding I hand over our $2.8 million family home. 3 months ago, I'd buried my wife Margaret alone. Brandon had been too busy to attend her funeral, too busy to even know she'd passed. Now he was back, with his lawyer wife Jennifer's legal strategy and his medical degree as weapons against his grieving father. I should have broken down, should have begged, should have been the helpless old man they clearly expected. Instead, I smiled and walked to my study. Let me get you something first, son. What I brought back would destroy both their careers forever. Because for 8 years, while they'd been building their professional reputations, I'd been building evidence. Subscribe to learn how I turned the tables. I remember the exact moment everything changed. October 15th, 2016. Margaret had been forgetting little things: car keys, appointments, our anniversary. When Dr. Susan Chen at Metropolitan Hospital said the words early stage Alzheimer's, I watched my world crack in half. Brandon was finishing his surgical residency at Johns Hopkins then. He'd married Jennifer, a successful corporate lawyer, 2 years earlier. Jennifer had never been close to us. She'd grown up wealthy and often said that family drama was too complicated. When I called Brandon about Margaret's diagnosis, he promised to visit soon, but the next day he called back with a different message. Dad, Jennifer thinks it's better to let the professionals handle this. She's worried about exposure to the situation, and I don't want to upset her. That was the beginning of 8 years of Jennifer's influence over every family decision. The bills started immediately. $23,000 a month for Margaret's care. I'd been making $68,000 a year as a fire department training officer, working toward my captain's promotion. The math was simple. I couldn't do both, so I chose her. I submitted my resignation on November 3rd, 2016. 34 years of service, pension benefits, the respect of my crew, all of it gone. That first year, I called Brandon 127 times. I kept count. He returned maybe 20 of them, always rushed, always apologetic, but with Jennifer's voice often audible in the background. Dad, I want to help, but Jennifer thinks it's better if we maintain some boundaries. She says it'll be less confusing for Mom if we don't visit irregularly. Boundaries. That became Jennifer's favorite word. In one of the rare calls Brandon answered in 2018, I could hear tension in his voice. Dad, I'm ashamed seeing Mom like this. I remember her being so strong, and now Jennifer says I should focus on our future instead of dwelling on the past. Brandon, she's not the past. She's your mother, and she's still here. I know, Dad, but it's just hard. Thanksgiving 2017. I set 3 places at the table, hoping against hope. Margaret wore her best dress, the blue one Brandon always said made her eyes sparkle. She'd been having a good day. When is Brandon coming? She asked every 10 minutes. His text came at 4:30 p.m. Sorry, Dad, Jennifer planned something last minute. Give Mom my love. I found out later from Jennifer's Instagram pictures of them at an upscale resort in Miami. Her caption read, Escaping family drama to enjoy real life. Hashtag grateful, no stress. When I confronted Brandon about it, he was defensive. Dad, Jennifer didn't want me going back while Mom was not well. She said it would affect my career focus. By 2019, Margaret's condition had worsened significantly. In one of the few video calls Brandon attempted that year, Margaret asked about her grandchildren, children that had never existed, because Jennifer wasn't ready for kids with all this family instability. Brandon cut the call short when Margaret repeated the question. Mom, I don't want Jennifer to see you like this. She thinks it's better to keep distance to avoid heartbreak. The medical bills kept climbing, home health aides, therapy, medications. I refinanced our house twice, burning through retirement savings. When I sent Brandon copies of major medical bills, hoping he'd offer help, his responses were clinical. Dad, have you looked into state assistance programs? Jennifer researched some options online. State assistance for his mother, the woman who'd worked 2 jobs to pay for his medical school. Christmas 2020 was devastating. Margaret had been asking for Brandon for weeks. I decorated exactly like she used to, hoping for a miracle visit. I called Brandon on Christmas Eve. Son, your mother's having a really hard time. She keeps asking for you. Could you drive up for just one day? Dad, Jennifer booked us a ski trip to Aspen. She says I need to stop enabling your emotional dependency and focus on our marriage. Jennifer's Instagram that night showed them toasting champagne in a luxury ski lodge. Her caption, finally learned to put our relationship first. Number sign boundaries, number sign self-care. The recording started in 2021. I documented everything now. The missed calls, excuses, Margaret's tears when Brandon didn't come. In one particularly painful call from 2022, Brandon's guilt finally showed through. Dad, I know I should visit more. But every time I think about coming, Jennifer reminds me how toxic the situation is. She says watching Mom deteriorate isn't good for my mental health. What about your mother's mental health, Brandon? I I know, Dad. But Jennifer says professionals can handle it better than family. May 2022, Brandon missed Margaret's 65th birthday for a couples retreat Jennifer had planned. January 2023, when Margaret fell and broke her hip, I spent 3 nights in the hospital with her. Brandon sent flowers with a card signed by both him and Jennifer. Thinking of you both. Dash Brandon and Jen. Jennifer had never met Margaret in 8 years of marriage. By Margaret's final year, she'd stopped eating regularly. In her lucid moments, she'd look toward the door with heartbreaking hope. Where's my boy? I want to see my boy. The last voicemail I left was February 10th, 2024. Brandon, your mother is dying. The doctors say maybe days left. She's been asking for you constantly. Please, son, please come home. He called back 3 days later. Dad, I'm so sorry I missed your call. Jennifer and I were at a medical conference in Orlando. How's Mom doing? She died yesterday, Brandon. Your mother died yesterday. The silence stretched forever. Oh, God. Dad, Jennifer said it wasn't that serious yet. Why didn't you make it clearer? 563 missed calls said otherwise. He couldn't make the funeral either. Jennifer thinks it would be too traumatic for me, given my guilt over not visiting more. I buried my wife of 42 years alone, surrounded by neighbors who'd watched me fight this battle without my own son's support. That's when I knew exactly what I had to do. 3 weeks after Margaret's funeral, Brandon called. Not to check on me, not to share memories of his mother, but to discuss what Jennifer called my property management crisis. I was sitting in Margaret's chair, the burgundy recliner where she'd spent her final months. Her reading glasses were still on the side table, her crossword puzzle book half finished. Dad, Jennifer and I have been talking about your situation. Those were his opening words. Not, how are you holding up, but a clinical assessment delivered with his wife's authority backing him. I'm grieving, Brandon. That's normal when you lose your wife. It's been 3 weeks, Dad. Jennifer did some research. She says prolonged grief can indicate cognitive decline, especially in men your age. She thinks we need to take action. Action. Jennifer had been researching me like a legal case. I'm 62 years old, not 92. Age isn't the only factor, Dad. Jennifer pointed out that the stress of caregiving, the financial strain, the isolation, these things damage executive function. She's concerned about your ability to make sound decisions. I pressed the record button on my phone. This conversation felt important to preserve. What kind of decisions worry Jennifer, son? Well, for starters, you're sitting on nearly $3 million in real estate while drowning in medical debt. Jennifer ran the numbers. That house is worth $2.8 million, Dad. She says you could downsize, clear your debts, set yourself up properly. Jennifer had done her homework. Property values, my financial vulnerability, the most efficient extraction method. This house is my home, Brandon. It's where your mother and I built our life together. And that's exactly the kind of emotional thinking that concerns Jennifer. You're not being rational, Dad. You're letting sentiment override financial logic. Sentiment. Jennifer was calling my love for Margaret sentiment, and Brandon was parroting her words. Your mother died in this house, Brandon, in our bedroom, holding my hand. You think I should just sell that away? Dad, Mom is gone. Jennifer says clinging to physical spaces isn't healthy. It's actually a symptom of complicated grief that can progress to serious cognitive problems if untreated. Every word sounded rehearsed, like Jennifer had coached him through this conversation. Are you saying I'm mentally incompetent? I'm saying Jennifer thinks you're showing signs of impaired judgment, and as a doctor, I have to agree. The responsible thing would be to transfer the property into competent hands before you make irreversible mistakes. Competent hands? You mean yours and Jennifer's. Dad, Jennifer has a law degree and financial planning experience. I'm a doctor. We understand asset management better than someone in your emotional state. The recording device was capturing everything: his tone, Jennifer's influence, the complete absence of empathy for a man who'd just lost his wife. So, what exactly are you both proposing? Sign the house over to us. Jennifer will set up a trust. Make sure you get the psychiatric care you clearly need. You can keep living there, of course, but under proper supervision. Supervision? Like I was a patient in his hospital. And what if I refuse? The pause was telling. When Brandon spoke again, I could almost hear Jennifer coaching him. Dad, Jennifer researched the legal requirements. As a medical professional, I'd be obligated to report cognitive decline in an elderly patient, especially one who's demonstrated poor judgment about finances and self-care. You're saying you'd have me declared mentally incompetent? Jennifer thinks we should have you properly evaluated by qualified professionals first. If they determine you can't manage your affairs safely, then yes, guardianship proceedings might be necessary. Guardianship. Jennifer's legal background was showing through Brandon's medical threats. Brandon, I took care of your mother for 8 years while you were building your career with Jennifer. I managed everything. And now you think I'm incompetent? That's exactly Jennifer's point, Dad. She says the stress of caregiving has clearly affected your cognitive function. You're not the same person you were 8 years ago, and we can't ignore that. He was right about one thing. I wasn't the same person. But not in the way Jennifer thought. I need time to think about this. Of course, but Dad, Jennifer says not to take too long. She's concerned that every day you delay getting help, your condition could deteriorate further. My condition. Jennifer had diagnosed me through Brandon, found me guilty of grief, and prescribed signing away my home as treatment. I'll call you soon, Brandon. Good. And Dad, Jennifer wants you to know this is coming from a place of love. We're trying to protect you from making mistakes you'll regret. Love. After 8 years of Jennifer keeping Brandon away from his dying mother, she was calling attempted theft love. I hung up and stopped the recording, 24 minutes and 12 seconds of my son systematically dismantling my competence under his wife's direction. But what struck me most wasn't Brandon's cruelty, it was his complete surrender to Jennifer's agenda. Every argument was hers. Every justification came from her research. Even his medical authority was being wielded at her instruction. The man who'd been too ashamed to visit his dying mother was now ashamed enough to steal from his grieving father, all because his wife demanded it. I sat in Margaret's chair for a long time, thinking about the son I'd raised versus the man Jennifer had molded. Brandon had always been easily influenced, but I'd hoped marriage would strengthen him, not turn him into someone else's weapon. Then I picked up the phone and called Patricia Miller. Patricia, it's Richard Wilson. I need to discuss urgent legal matters regarding my son and his wife. The war Jennifer had started was about to end very differently than she'd planned. Patricia Miller's office felt like a sanctuary. I'd been there dozens of times over the years, but this visit carried the weight of finality. Richard, I'm so sorry for your loss, Patricia said. Margaret was wonderful. Thank you. She always said you were the only lawyer who treated people like humans instead of billable hours. I placed my phone on her desk and hit play. 24 minutes of Brandon and Jennifer's coordinated assault on my mental competence. Patricia's expression darkened with each passing minute. Jesus, Richard, this isn't just elder abuse. It's a calculated legal and medical conspiracy. Your daughter-in-law has clearly researched guardianship law, while your son provides the medical justification. Can they actually succeed? They can try. But it would require multiple independent medical evaluations, court hearings, substantial evidence of cognitive impairment. Jennifer's law background gives her dangerous knowledge, but from what I've observed in our meetings, their case would be difficult to prove. Some tension left my shoulders. What are my options? Patricia opened her legal pad. We could wait and defend, but given their coordination, I'd recommend offense. Document everything. Build a comprehensive record of their behavior, and consider protecting your assets before they can challenge your competence. I thought about 8 years of evidence sitting in my filing cabinet, missed calls, broken promises, documented abandonment, while Jennifer actively encouraged Brandon's absence. Patricia, what if I told you I had 8 years of evidence showing Brandon abandoned his dying mother at his wife's direction? Phone records, recordings, financial documents proving I handled everything alone while Jennifer kept him away? Her pen stopped moving. That would be devastating to their credibility. Elder abandonment orchestrated by a lawyer spouse using a doctor husband as the instrument? That's career-ending territory. And what if I wanted to sell the house? Completely, you're right. Though if you're considering what I think you're considering, I'd been mulling this since Margaret's funeral. Our empty house felt like a mausoleum, but more importantly, I'd realized something. Brandon was right about one thing. I wasn't the same person I'd been 8 years ago. I was stronger, and I was done being manipulated. I want to sell the house, Patricia. To the Alzheimer's Research Foundation. Margaret always said if her suffering could help other families, it would give her illness meaning. Patricia's eyes widened. Richard, that's a $2.8 million donation. Are you certain? I've never been more certain of anything. And Brandon and Jennifer? I smiled grimly. They can find out with everyone else. We spent 2 hours working through details. The house would transfer to the Alzheimer's Research Foundation at fair market value, funding a new research wing in Margaret's name. I'd retain residence rights for 1 year while determining next steps. There's one more thing, I said as we finished paperwork. I want Brandon and Jennifer to learn about this sale in a very specific way. And I explained my plan. Patricia listened with growing amazement. Richard, it's certainly poetic justice. But are you prepared for the public nature of this confrontation? Patricia, Jennifer researched how to steal my house using Brandon's medical degree as leverage. Brandon threatened to have me declared incompetent so they could inherit property I was supposedly too mentally ill to manage. I think some public accountability is exactly what they both deserve. She nodded slowly. Jennifer's legal career could be seriously damaged by this exposure. Good. She spent 8 years keeping Brandon away from his dying mother, then tried to steal from his grieving father. Her career deserves to be damaged. I signed papers transferring ownership to the foundation effective in 30 days. The announcement would be made at the hospital's annual fundraising gala, an event Brandon never missed, always networking for private practice clients, while Jennifer worked the room for potential legal contacts. One question, Richard. Are you prepared for the possibility that this destroys your relationship with Brandon permanently? I considered that. Patricia, my relationship with Brandon was destroyed 8 years ago when he chose Jennifer's comfort over his mother's love. I'm just making that destruction official. Driving home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Clarity. Margaret would have supported this decision completely. She'd always believed in fighting for what was right, especially when it was difficult. That evening, I began organizing 8 years of evidence phone records, medical bills, recordings of Brandon's excuses and Jennifer's influence. Every missed call, every broken promise, every Instagram post showing their luxury lifestyle while Margaret suffered. The hunter was about to become the hunted, and Jennifer's legal expertise was about to work against her in ways she'd never anticipated. The evidence room, Margaret's old sewing room, became my war room. 8 years of documentation covered every surface, but now I was organizing it differently. Not just Brandon's abandonment, but Jennifer's orchestration of it. The smoking gun was my old phone's voicemail archive. I'd kept every message, thinking someday I'd delete them for storage space. Now I understood why I'd never been able to press delete. The earliest recording was from November 2016, a month after Margaret's diagnosis. Hey Dad, Brandon here. Jennifer and I talked, and she thinks it's better if we don't visit regularly. She says inconsistent contact might confuse Mom more. We'll check in by phone instead. Even then it was Jennifer thinks, and Jennifer says. By 2018, the pattern was clear. Every excuse came filtered through Jennifer's research or concerns. I spent 3 days creating a timeline, Brandon's words on one side, Jennifer's Instagram posts on the other. Christmas 2019. Brandon's voicemail said, Jennifer planned a wellness retreat for my mental health. She's worried about my depression over Mom's condition. Jennifer's Instagram that same day. Sometimes you have to choose your happiness over family drama. Hashtag self-care, hashtag boundaries work. The hospital visitor logs were devastating when cross-referenced with Jennifer's social media activity. During Margaret's 6 hospitalizations, Jennifer posted 47 times from restaurants, spas, and social events, always with Brandon, always during his mother's medical crises. But I needed to understand their vulnerabilities beyond just family abandonment. So I researched them the way they'd researched me. Jennifer worked at Morrison, Blake and Associates, a prestigious firm handling corporate law and estate planning. Her LinkedIn showed recent promotions and high-profile clients. Her Instagram revealed expensive tastes, designer clothes, luxury vacations, exclusive restaurants. More importantly, her law firm's website emphasized family values and ethical excellence. Several recent posts highlighted their pro bono work with elder care advocacy. Brandon's hospital profiles emphasized his compassionate patient care and family-centered approach to medicine. His department had recently launched a caregiver support initiative for families dealing with chronic illness. The irony was suffocating. I started making strategic phone calls. First to Dr. Susan Chen, Margaret's neurologist. Mr. Wilson, I've been thinking about you since Margaret's passing. How are you managing? Dr. Chen, I need to ask you about something delicate. It involves Brandon and his wife, Jennifer. I explained their coordinated threats, their plans to have me declared incompetent. Dr. Chen listened without interruption. Mr. Wilson, in 8 years of treating your wife, I met Brandon exactly once at the initial consultation. I remember asking about family support, and he said his wife thought professional distance was healthier for everyone involved. You documented that? We document all family dynamics. Your wife's file shows you attended every appointment, every emergency, every consultation. The absence of her son was notable, especially given his medical background. Would you provide a statement about that? If it helps protect you from what sounds like medical and legal coercion combined, absolutely. Next, I called Fire Chief Mike Anderson. Richard Wilson, how have you been since Margaret's passing? I explained Brandon and Jennifer's scheme. Mike's reaction was immediate and profane. That manipulative little... Sorry, Richard, but I remember when you resigned to care for Margaret. Jennifer came to the retirement party briefly, spent the whole time checking her phone and complaining about the depressing atmosphere. Brandon barely stayed 10 minutes. Would you document that? Damn right. And Richard, half the department remembers how proud you were of Brandon's career. How many times you made excuses for why he couldn't visit Margaret. We all knew something was wrong. The character witnesses mounted quickly. Our family doctor, financial advisor, neighbors, all shocked by the coordinated nature of Brandon and Jennifer's scheme. But my breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Davis from next door knocked on my door Thursday evening. Richard, I hope you don't mind, but I've been worried since that incident with the real estate agent. I did some research on your daughter-in-law. What kind of research? Well, my nephew works at Morrison, Blake and Associates. He says Jennifer's been bragging about coming into a significant family inheritance soon. She's already been shopping for houses in Scottsdale, telling colleagues her husband's father is finally being realistic about his limitations. The pieces clicked together. This wasn't just about the house. Jennifer had been planning and bragging about stealing from me while I was still grieving my wife. Mrs. Davis, would your nephew be willing to document what Jennifer said at work? Oh, Richard, it's worse than that. She apparently sent emails about it. My nephew works in IT. He's seen the firm's internal communications about potential conflicts of interest when lawyers inherit property through family legal actions. Friday evening, I called Brandon. Time to let him think he was winning while I gathered final evidence. Son, I've been thinking about what you and Jennifer said. About the house. About my mental state. I'm glad you're being rational about this, Dad. I'm scared, Brandon. Maybe Jennifer's right. Maybe I'm not thinking clearly anymore. I could hear his relief. It's okay, Dad. Jennifer's already contacted some estate planning specialists. We're going to take care of everything. Of course she had. Jennifer found a really good elder law attorney who specializes in these transitions, Brandon continued. She's confident we can have everything transferred smoothly. When do you want to move forward? Soon, Dad. Jennifer says the longer we wait, the more opportunity there is for you to make mistakes that could complicate the legal process. Okay, son. Whatever you and Jennifer think is best. After hanging up, I sat in Margaret's chair and smiled. They thought they'd won. Brandon was probably already telling Jennifer about my surrender, and she was probably already planning how to spend my money. They had no idea that every conversation was being recorded, every threat documented, and every piece of evidence organized for maximum public impact. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait for them to walk into it at the hospital fundraising gala, where Jennifer's legal colleagues and Brandon's medical colleagues would witness their complete destruction. 2 weeks later, Brandon made his move. I was sitting on Margaret's memorial bench in our neighborhood park when I saw his silver BMW pull up to my house. 2 people climbed out. Jennifer stepped from the passenger seat first. Tall, blonde, designer suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. She moved with the predatory confidence of someone about to close a profitable deal. The real estate agent followed, carrying measuring equipment and a portfolio. Even from 2 blocks away, I could see Jennifer directing the operation like a general commanding troops. I stayed on the bench, watching through oak trees as they walked around my property. Jennifer pointed out features with proprietorial confidence, taking photos with her phone. The agent measured the yard while Jennifer peered through windows like she was already planning renovations. Mrs. Davis was in her garden, close enough to overhear their conversation. Perfect. I walked home slowly, timing my arrival for maximum impact. "Dad, there you are," Brandon called out with forced cheerfulness. "I'd like you to meet Linda Patterson from Premium Properties. Jennifer found her. She specializes in these kinds of family transitions." Linda extended a manicured hand. "Mr. Wilson, your son and daughter-in-law have explained your situation. I'm very sorry for your loss." My situation. Jennifer had briefed her thoroughly, painted the picture of an incompetent old man whose family was heroically rescuing him from his own poor judgment. "Thank you," I said quietly. "Though I'm confused about why you're here." Jennifer stepped forward smoothly. "Richard, we discussed this with Brandon. The house sale, remember? I researched several agents, and Linda has excellent reviews for handling estate transitions." She spoke to me like I was a confused child, her lawyer's training evident in every calculated word. "But Jennifer, I never agreed to sell the house." Brandon and Jennifer exchanged a look, the kind attorneys share when a witness isn't cooperating with the predetermined narrative. "Dad," Brandon said patiently, "we had a very clear conversation about this. You said you were scared, that you couldn't handle the house anymore, that you wanted Jennifer and me to take care of everything." The gaslighting was textbook perfect. Public, confident, designed to make me question my own memory while establishing their version of events for witnesses. "I'm sorry," I said, louder now, "but I think there's been a misunderstanding. This is my home. My wife just died here 3 months ago. I'm not selling anything." Linda looked uncomfortable, but Jennifer stepped in smoothly. "Richard, this is exactly what we've been worried about. The confusion, the memory issues. Dr. Wilson explained that grief can sometimes affect cognitive function in older adults. Jennifer's legal training was showing she was building a public record of my alleged incompetence, while positioning herself as the concerned family member. Mrs. Davis had stopped pretending to garden. She was listening intently, her face growing more concerned by the minute. "I'm not confused," I said clearly. "I never agreed to any sale." "Dad, please," Brandon interrupted, embarrassment creeping into his voice. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "Making what harder?" Mrs. Davis called out, stepping closer to the property line. Jennifer turned on her professional charm. "Just some family financial planning, Mrs. Davis. And I've lived next to Richard and Margaret for 20 years. Richard's one of the sharpest men I know." Jennifer's smile tightened. "I'm sure he was, Mrs. Davis, but grief can change people significantly. Richard," Mrs. Davis said firmly, "do you want to sell your house?" "No," I said clearly, loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I absolutely do not." Brandon's face flushed red. "Dad, you're not thinking rationally." "I think we should reschedule," Linda interrupted, backing toward her car. As Linda drove away, Jennifer's composure finally cracked slightly. "This isn't over, Richard. Brandon's medical assessment stands, and I've already researched the legal options available to us." Mrs. Davis was still watching, and I knew she'd remember every word of Jennifer's legal threat. "We'll see about that," I said calmly. "We'll see about that." Jennifer's public humiliation in front of Mrs. Davis triggered a sophisticated damage control campaign. Within days, she was working every angle to protect both her legal career and their planned inheritance grab. It started with social media warfare. Jennifer, who usually posted sparingly about family, suddenly became the devoted daughter-in-law, sharing memories of beloved Margaret. Photos appeared of her and Brandon at various events with captions about the challenges of supporting family through difficult transitions and making hard decisions with love and professional expertise. The posts were masterfully crafted. Jennifer managed to portray herself as both the caring family member and the legal professional forced to make difficult choices about an aging relative. To anyone who didn't know the truth, she looked like a woman heroically managing a complex family crisis. But Jennifer's real strategy was more insidious. Dr. Susan Chen called me 3 days after the real estate incident. Mr. Wilson, I've been seeing concerning activity in professional forums. Your daughter-in-law has been posting in legal groups about medical legal coordination in elder care cases. What do you mean? She's discussing your situation in private attorney networks, seeking advice about family members who resist appropriate intervention. She's building a legal coalition while Brandon builds a medical one. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just theft. It was a coordinated professional conspiracy. Dr. Chen, is that ethical? For Jennifer, it's legally questionable. For Brandon, it crosses multiple medical ethics boundaries. He's discussing a family member's mental health in professional forums without consent. That evening, Mrs. Davis knocked on my door with disturbing news. Richard, my nephew at Morrison, Blake and Associates, says Jennifer's been quite busy. She's apparently consulted with 3 different elder law specialists and has been telling colleagues that her father-in-law's competency case will be an interesting learning experience. Learning experience? She's treating your situation like a case study, Richard. My nephew says she's been researching guardianship law extensively and has already identified 2 physicians willing to evaluate you for cognitive decline. The trap was closing faster than I'd anticipated. Jennifer wasn't just planning to steal my house, she was turning it into a career advancement opportunity. Patricia Miller called that same evening. Richard, the legal community is small. Word is spreading that Jennifer Wilson is shopping around for attorneys willing to pursue an aggressive guardianship case. She's apparently promised it will be straightforward because she has his medical backing from her husband. How much time do I have? If Jennifer files a petition, the preliminary evaluation process could begin immediately. And she's smart. She's building a paper trail of your alleged incompetence while positioning herself as the reluctant but responsible family member. I spent the next morning making strategic calls. First to Helen Rodriguez, our financial advisor. Helen, I need a favor. Can you arrange a press conference for a major charitable donation? Richard, what are you planning? A $2.8 million donation to Alzheimer's research, in Margaret's name. I want maximum publicity, media coverage, hospital administration present. That's incredible, Richard. When? Next Friday, the hospital's monthly board meeting. I want it announced in front of the entire medical staff and any legal community members who might be present. My second call was to Mike Anderson. Mike, I need you to spread word through the first responder community. Richard Wilson is making a major announcement next Friday at Metropolitan Hospital. Anyone who knew Margaret should attend. Word spread through the hospital like wildfire. A $2.8 million donation was major news, especially from a retired firefighter. The development office arranged press coverage and VIP attendance. Jennifer found out Tuesday morning when a colleague at Morrison, Blake and Associates, mentioned seeing the hospital's press release about a major donor announcement. Brandon called me that afternoon, panic barely concealed in his voice. Dad, Jennifer saw something about an announcement at the hospital. Something involving Mom's name? That's right, son. I thought it was time to honor your mother properly. What kind of announcement? You'll find out Friday. I hope you and Jennifer can both attend. The entire cardiac surgery department has been invited, along with several legal professionals from the community. The silence stretched for 40 seconds. Dad, please tell me you're not making major financial decisions without consulting Jennifer and me first. Why would I need to consult you, Brandon? Jennifer said I was mentally incompetent. Remember? Another long pause. Dad, we need to talk before Friday. Jennifer thinks ... I'm afraid I'm too busy this week preparing my presentation. See you Friday, son. I hung up and smiled. Jennifer's legal expertise was about to work against her in ways she'd never anticipated. Her professional network would witness her complete destruction, along with Brandon's medical colleagues. The hunter had become the hunted, and Jennifer was finally beginning to understand that she wasn't dealing with a confused old man anymore. She was dealing with someone who'd been building a case against her for 8 years. Thursday night, the evening before my announcement, I sat in Margaret's chair one final time, surrounded by 8 years of evidence. Tomorrow would destroy both Brandon's medical career and Jennifer's legal reputation, but tonight belonged to the careful accounting of their coordinated betrayal. The manila folders were labeled by year, each documenting another layer of Jennifer's orchestrated abandonment campaign. I opened 2016, first the year everything began. 127 missed calls from me to Brandon. I'd counted them twice, then had Patricia's assistant verify from phone company records. His return call rate, 18%, and only when Jennifer wasn't directing his responses. The voicemails told the real story. November 2016. Dad, Jennifer researched Alzheimer's care, and she thinks family visits during early stages can actually increase confusion. We should let the professionals handle it. December 2016. Dad, Jennifer's concerned about my emotional health. She says watching Mom deteriorate isn't good for my career focus. Jennifer's influence was documented from day one. Medical bills from 2016 totaled $127,000. Brandon and Jennifer's financial contribution, $0. I moved to 2017 cross-referencing Brandon's excuses with Jennifer's social media activity. Thanksgiving week, Brandon's voicemail claimed Jennifer planned a wellness retreat for my mental health. Jennifer's Instagram from that same trip. Sometimes you have to choose happiness over family drama. #boundaries. Work, #self-care. 43 photos from their wellness retreat, while Margaret spent Thanksgiving asking why her son wouldn't come home. 2018 brought Margaret's first major hospitalization for pneumonia, 6 days in ICU while she fought for her life. The visitor logs showed my name 43 times. Our home health aide visited 7 times. Mrs. Davis brought flowers twice. Brandon's name, 0 entries. But Jennifer's Instagram showed their location throughout Margaret's crisis wine tastings in Napa Valley while his mother was on a ventilator. By 2019, Jennifer's strategy was fully developed. She'd convinced Brandon that his mother's illness was toxic to their marriage and his career. The evidence was in their own messages. A saved text from Jennifer to Brandon, screenshot from his phone. Your dad is manipulating you with guilt. My research shows that prolonged exposure to dementia patients can cause secondary trauma in family members. We need to maintain boundaries for our mental health. Brandon's response, you're right. I'll tell Dad we can't visit as much. Jennifer's reply, not can't visit as much. We need complete space until she's stabilized. I've talked to other lawyer wives who've dealt with similar situations. She'd researched abandonment strategies like a legal brief. 2020 and 2021 showed the pattern perfected. Every holiday excuse came filtered through Jennifer's professional recommendations. Christmas 2020. Brandon claimed Jennifer's therapist recommended avoiding family trauma during the holidays. Jennifer's Instagram that Christmas. Learn to prioritize our relationship over family drama. Best decision ever. Couples goals, #boundaries save marriages. The financial devastation was staggering. $563,000 in total medical expenses over those years, all while Jennifer posted about designer purchases and luxury vacations funded by Brandon's surgical income. But the cruelest evidence was Jennifer's manipulation of Brandon's guilt. In a recorded phone call from 2022, Brandon finally admitted the truth. Dad, I want to visit Mom, but Jennifer says it's not healthy for me. She researched caregiver burnout and thinks I'm showing symptoms just from the phone calls. She made me promise to prioritize our marriage. Brandon, you haven't visited your mother in 6 years. I know, Dad, but Jennifer says that proves I'm making the right choice for my mental health. Jennifer had convinced Brandon that abandoning his dying mother was actually therapeutic. The final folder contained the smoking gun. Jennifer's own words captured during a speakerphone conversation in 2023. Brandon had called about Margaret's fall, and I'd heard Jennifer coaching him in the background. Tell him we can't afford to get emotionally involved. Remind him that as a doctor, you need to maintain professional distance even with family. When Brandon hesitated, Jennifer's voice came clearly through the phone. Brandon, we've discussed this. Your mother's condition is deteriorating anyway. Getting attached now will just make it harder when she dies. Think about our future. Our future. While Margaret was broken and scared in a hospital bed, Jennifer was calculating inheritance timelines. I'd compiled 17 character witness statements, documenting my mental competence and Brandon's absence. Dr. Susan Chen's medical notes showed Margaret asking for Brandon during every appointment in her final year. Fire Chief Anderson's statement detailed my 34 years of exemplary service and sound judgment. But the most damning evidence was the recorded threats. 24 minutes of Brandon and Jennifer's coordinated plan to have me declared incompetent so they could steal my house. The moral accounting was complete. 8 years of Jennifer's orchestrated abandonment, documented with legal precision. Tomorrow, her professional colleagues would hear exactly how she'd used her legal knowledge to manipulate her husband into abandoning his dying mother, then tried to steal from his grieving father. Margaret deserved justice. Tomorrow, she would finally get it. Friday morning arrived crisp and clear. I dressed carefully, my best navy suit, the one Margaret had bought me for our 40th anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was wearing it to defend her memory against our own son and his wife. Metropolitan Hospital's conference room was larger than expected. Helen Rodriguez had outdone herself. Local news cameras lined the back wall. The hospital's entire board sat in front rows, along with department heads and senior medical staff. I spotted Brandon and Jennifer immediately. They sat with the cardiac surgery team, Jennifer's designer suit and confident posture suggesting she expected a routine family donation ceremony. Brandon looked nervous, but Jennifer appeared completely composed, probably viewing this as another networking opportunity. Dr. Michael Thompson, Brandon's department head, sat nearby. Dr. Sarah Chen, the chief of staff, was taking notes. Several attorneys from Morrison, Blake, and Associates had attended, likely Jennifer's colleagues, curious about the family inheritance case she'd been discussing. Helen introduced me warmly, emphasizing my fire department service and extraordinary dedication as a caregiver during his wife's 8-year battle with Alzheimer's. I stepped to the podium and looked out at 43 people, mostly medical and legal professionals who understood both the cost of Alzheimer's and the importance of family support. Thank you all for coming. My name is Richard Wilson. 3 months ago, I lost my wife Margaret to Alzheimer's disease after an 8-year battle. Today, I'm announcing a $2.8 million donation to establish the Margaret Wilson Memorial Research Wing. Applause filled the room. I saw Brandon's face register shock, then confusion. Jennifer's expression remained controlled, but her eyes had sharpened with calculation. She was probably wondering how this affected their inheritance plans. This donation represents the sale of our family home, the house where Margaret and I built our life together, where we raised our son Brandon, and where she passed away peacefully in my arms. I gestured toward Brandon. Several colleagues smiled warmly at him, assuming this was a proud family moment. But this donation's about more than research funding. It's about honoring true caregivers, the family members who sacrifice everything for their loved ones, often without recognition or support. Dr. Thompson nodded approvingly. This was exactly the message the medical community embraced. Over 8 years, I learned that caregiving isn't about professional credentials or medical knowledge. It's about showing up, day after day, year after year, even when it's difficult, even when it costs everything. The room grew quiet, sensing a shift in tone. Unfortunately, not everyone understands this responsibility. Some people believe professional credentials can substitute for personal commitment. Others use their legal expertise to justify abandonment. Jennifer's composure cracked slightly. She was beginning to understand this wasn't the ceremony she'd expected. 3 weeks ago, my son Brandon and his wife Jennifer called to discuss my mental competence. They suggested my grief indicated cognitive impairment. They recommended I sign over my house to them for my own protection. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Dr. Thompson's expression shifted from warm approval to serious concern. Jennifer's colleagues from Morrison, Blake, and Associates were paying closer attention. Brandon felt that as a medical professional, he was qualified to diagnose my mental state over a phone call. Jennifer, as a practicing attorney, researched the legal requirements for having me declared mentally incompetent. I reached into my jacket and pulled out my phone. "I'd like to share part of their coordinated plan with you." Brandon started to rise. "Dad, this isn't appropriate. Please, doctor." "Wilson," Dr. Chen interrupted firmly, "let your father finish." I pressed play. Brandon's voice filled the conference room, clinical and cold, with Jennifer's influence evident in every calculated phrase. "Dad, Jennifer thinks you're showing signs of impaired judgment. The responsible thing would be to transfer the property into competent hands before you make irreversible mistakes." "Competent hands? You mean yours and Jennifer's?" "Dad, Jennifer has a law degree and financial planning experience. I'm a doctor. We understand asset management better than someone in your emotional state." Jennifer's voice could be heard coaching in the background. "Tell him about the legal options, Brandon. Remind him about guardianship proceedings." The recording continued for 3 excruciating minutes. Brandon's medical threats, Jennifer's legal strategy, their coordinated plan to steal my house while I grieved my wife. When it ended, the silence was deafening. Jennifer's colleagues were staring at her with undisguised shock. "Now," I continued, "I'd like to provide context for their professional assessment of my competence." I opened my presentation folder. During Margaret's 8-year illness, Brandon called me 563 times. He returned 97 of my calls, a response rate of 17%. However, the real story is in the voicemails he left. I press play again. Brandon's voice from 2017. "Dad, Jennifer researched Alzheimer's care. She thinks family visits during early stages actually increase confusion." Then Jennifer's Instagram post from that same week, displayed on the conference room screen. "Sometimes you have to choose happiness over family drama. Number sign boundaries work." Gasps echoed through the room. Dr. Thompson was writing furiously. "Over 8 years, Margaret was hospitalized 6 times. These hospital visitor logs show I was present for every admission, every procedure, every consultation. They also show that Dr. Wilson visited his dying mother exactly 0 times." Several people turned to stare at Brandon. His face was flushed red, but Jennifer remained defiant, her lawyer training keeping her composed under fire. "The financial cost of Margaret's care totaled $563,000. I paid every penny while Dr. Wilson and his wife posted about luxury vacations and designer purchases funded by his surgical income." I pulled out Jennifer's social media screenshots. These posts from Mrs. Wilson's Instagram were made during Margaret's most critical episodes. This wine tasting in Napa was posted while Margaret was in ICU with pneumonia. This designer shopping spree was during the weekend she broke her hip. Jennifer's colleagues were now openly staring at her. One was taking notes, probably considering the ethical implications for their firm. But perhaps most telling is how Mrs. Wilson orchestrated this abandonment using her legal expertise. I played another recording, Jennifer's voice coaching Brandon. "Your dad is manipulating you with guilt. My research shows prolonged exposure to dementia. Patients causes secondary trauma. We need complete space until she's stabilized." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Jennifer shot to her feet. "This is a violation of privacy. Those recordings were made without consent." "Actually, Mrs. Wilson," Patricia Miller's voice came from the back of the room, "in Arizona, single-party consent applies to recording conversations. Your husband consented by participating in the calls." Patricia had arrived as my backup, and Jennifer's face went pale as she recognized the legal trap she'd walked into. "Furthermore," I continued, "Mrs. Wilson spent 8 years convincing my son that abandoning his dying mother was therapeutic, while she researched how to steal from his grieving father." I turned to look directly at both of them. "When Margaret was dying, I left Brandon a voicemail explaining she had days to live. He called back 3 days later to learn she'd already passed. His excuse? Jennifer had convinced him that his mother's death wasn't imminent enough to interrupt their vacation plans." Dr. Chen was staring at Brandon with disgust. "Dr. Wilson, is this accurate?" Brandon's voice was barely a whisper. "Dad, Jennifer thought—" "Dr. Wilson, Dr. Thompson interrupted, standing up. I think we need to discuss your employment status. My office? Now. Jennifer finally lost her composure completely. This is character assassination. Richard is clearly having a mental breakdown and making up stories. Mrs. Wilson, one of her colleagues called out, perhaps you should stop talking. You're making this worse. The attorney from Morrison, Blake and Associates was already on his phone, probably calling their ethics board. I'm finishing now, I said calmly. The Margaret Wilson Memorial Research Wing will open next year, funded by the home where she spent her final years surrounded by people who actually cared about her. Thank you. The applause was scattered and uncertain, but several people approached me afterward with support and condolences. As I headed for the exit, Jennifer cornered me in the hallway, her professional mask finally gone. You've destroyed us both, Richard. Brandon's career, my practice. No, Jennifer. You destroyed yourselves. I just documented it. Brandon appeared beside her, tears in his eyes for the first time in 8 years. Dad, I'm sorry. Jennifer convinced me that staying away was better for everyone, and I was too ashamed to see Mom deteriorating. It's too late for apologies, Brandon. Mrs. Davis was waiting for me in the parking lot, tears streaming down her face. Richard, Margaret would be so proud. You honored her memory and stood up for yourself. For the first time in months, I felt truly at peace. 6 months later, I stood in the Margaret Wilson Memorial Research Wing, watching technicians install the final piece of equipment. The gleaming laboratory stretched across 3,000 square feet, funded entirely by the sale of our family home. Dr. Susan Chen had been appointed director. She found me there that morning, reviewing the dedication plaque. Richard, this is remarkable. Margaret would be overwhelmed by what you've accomplished. She always said if her suffering could help other families, it would give her illness meaning. The aftermath had been swift and comprehensive. Dr. Michael Thompson suspended Brandon pending a medical board review. The hospital's ethics committee launched a formal investigation into his abandonment of family responsibilities while using medical authority for personal gain. Jennifer's legal career imploded even faster. Morrison, Blake and Associates terminated her partnership after the ethics board opened their investigation. Her professional reputation was destroyed overnight. No law firm wanted an attorney who'd orchestrated elder abandonment and attempted financial elder abuse. But the most unexpected consequence came 2 months after the announcement. Brandon called on a Tuesday evening, his voice broken. Dad, Jennifer left me. She said the scandal destroyed her career and she couldn't be married to someone who let his father humiliate her publicly. I felt a flicker of something, not quite sympathy, but recognition of his pain. Dad, I realize now how much Jennifer influenced my decisions. I was ashamed of seeing Mom deteriorate, and Jennifer made it easy to stay away. I know it's too late, but I'm sorry. Brandon, your mother died asking for you. That can't be undone. I know, but Dad, could we maybe try to rebuild something? I want to volunteer at the research wing, maybe help other families avoid what happened to us. I considered his request carefully. The research wing needed volunteers, and Brandon's medical background could be valuable. But trust once shattered required time to rebuild. Brandon, we can start with the volunteer work, but our relationship, if there ever is one again, will be earned, not inherited. I understand, Dad. I'll do whatever it takes. I moved into a comfortable downtown apartment, walking distance from the hospital where I now worked as a patient advocate. The Margaret Wilson Memorial Research Wing published promising early results in drug therapy that might slow Alzheimer's progression. Some boundaries, once established, protect what matters most. Others, carefully reconstructed, might offer hope for redemption.